Okay, I invite everyone to please close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. Amen. Okay, so last week we finished off the hero of the dream and we began working on a section that's actually really close to the hero of the dream. It's just a few sections before, and it's still in chapter 27. And this section is called the Dreamer of the Dream. And so if anybody's interested in going there, it's in chapter 27, as I said, section 7, paragraph 1. And let me see what page it's on, because I forgot to mark that. But it is on page 581. And though I read paragraph 1 last week, I'm just going to read through it again and just click a few of the highlights on that paragraph. So suffering is an emphasis upon all the world has on all that the world has done to injure you. Here is the world's demented vision, here is the world's demented version of salvation clearly shown. Like to a dream of punishment in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack against himself, he sees himself attacked unjustly and by someone not himself. He is the victim of this something else, a thing outside himself for which he has no reason to be held responsible. He must be innocent because he knows not what he does, but what is done to him. Yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering, and he cannot escape because its source is seen outside himself. So for some reason, this entire section, or at least the beginning part of this section, is, I think, especially word twisting. I know most of the course is, but it seems like some of the section or some of the paragraphs in this section are even more so. So he says, suffering is an emphasis upon all that the world has done to injure you. So our experience of suffering comes from this world that appears to, and I'm going to bring this chart up as the hero, that appears to be this injury done to me. You know, I'm the innocent victim, I'm the hero of the dream, but all these things are being done to me. And if it wasn't for those, I could be okay. Here's the world's demented version of salvation clearly shown. And what Jesus means by that is that since we've accepted this as our reality, that's what appears to be truth for us. But that this is simply one big setup, that we were the ones that set it up, and now we're living in it, unbeknownst to the fact that we're the ones that set it up. So it is the ego's way of solving the problem. And what problem did the ego solve by doing this? The problem it solved was it was afraid to go back to love, and it had the guilt, sin, and fear in his mind. So he dumped it out into the world and made everything outside the world, outside of me in the world, the problem instead of me. So when we're in the world as this character called the hero, I believe all these things are being done to me, and I don't remember that I was the one that wrote the script and then came into the play and played a character in the script, totally forgetting that I was the one that wrote the script. Like to a dream of punishment in which the dreamer is unconscious of what brought on the attack against himself, he sees himself attacked unjustly and by someone not of himself. So again, we set this up in a way that I completely experience life from the perspective of I am an innocent victim of circumstances beyond my control. And there's not much I can do. I mean, I try to change people. I try to manipulate the world in all different kinds of ways. But the bottom line is, if it wasn't for them, I could be okay. And we can fill that line in whatever them is at any given time. And also be aware that part of the them of that filling in the line can be my physical body deteriorating or having a problem as well, because the mind is outside of the body. So, even this character is part of this play of I'm an innocent victim of fill in the line. All right, so he is the victim of this something else. And anytime you see words or phrases like this with quotes, it means that this is the ego's game being played out. So while you're reading through the course and you see quotes like that, know that that's Jesus. It's kind of like a pun of the ego. So he is the victim of this something else, a thing outside himself, for which he has no reason to be held responsible. And we talked a few moments ago about the idea of love versus hate, and that love is on this side of the chart, and anything that happened after the separation is the opposite. And one of the defining words of this is the opposite of love is hate. So literally everything in here is hate. And everything outside of myself is responsible for taking away my peace. Though it was the Son of God that wrote the script that we now hopped into and are playing a part in. He must be innocent because he knows not what he does. I'm oblivious to what I did. And if you look at these lines in this chart, when we were here, we had the tiny mad idea where we chose for this. And then we had the choice to go back. We said, no, I'm afraid of God. He's going to do to me what I did to him. So I'm going to stay here. And then we drew a line so that we would never remember that this was a choice. Then we had the guilt, sin, and fear. And then we dumped it into the world, making something or someone outside of me the problem. And then we drew the line where we forgot that we wrote the script in the first place. So each one of these lines is very intentional. And each time we keep blocking off the memories that led us to where we find ourselves now. All right.
So Marianne.
Yes, Jason.
If you just say to yourself in a situation that I'm not an innocent victim here, I'm not an innocent victim.
Okay.
So does that hold any power, or?
Well, I would say that's a good stepping back step, because if you're acknowledging, wait a minute, I'm playing the part of an innocent victim, that the Holy Spirit's telling me I'm not an innocent victim. So you're becoming aware enough that you even have a crack or an opening of another possibility. Because, think about most of your life, okay? And then I'm talking to everybody, not just Jason. Most of our lives, somebody said something to us, we reacted, they reacted, and then there was this, one of these going on. There was no thinking, we were brain dead. It was just a no-brainer, just like when you go to the doctor's office and they tap your knee and your leg goes up. No conscious awareness of anything other than you did this, I did this, you did this, I did that, done. So any tiny bit of an awareness that, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it was. I'm not an innocent victim, but damn, I sure feel like an innocent victim. And, there's nothing wrong with being, kind of brutally honest with the fact that we do feel like an innocent victim. But now that I understand the course better, I know that I can't really be an innocent victim, and there's a lot more going on here. And that's really very much representative of the fact that you're not as brain dead as you used to be. And the whole concept of setting this scenario up was that we would remain mindless. I'm just an effect of this experience. There's nothing I can do but do my best to manipulate the world. So you're not as brain dead or mindless as you used to be. Okay.
Aren't you then being a little willing?
Well, yes, I would say you would be, because even to become willing, you have to become aware. So it's almost like the aspect of an awareness comes first, and then you're willing to drop it or look at it differently.
Or kind of also like if it's a question, then it's a question to another entity, to another idea. It's a question then, instead, because you're not getting an answer. If I'm not a victim,
Right.
To me becomes show me Holy Spirit how I'm not a victim.
Correct.
And I'm willing to wait and listen to something else.
Right. But even to get to
Mhm.
that point, a part of your mind had to become less
Yes.
less
Afraid.
well, but not even afraid. It had to become more aware and less addicted to the hold of the illusion, because before there wasn't another choice possible. There wasn't
Right.
I'm willing to drop this and choose differently. I just reacted the best way I knew how to react within the context of my world, and that was all there was to choose from. So we weren't as brain dead as we were more brain dead than we are now. And it's that becoming aware that allows us the opportunity to be able to be willing to make another choice.
So just saying, I ordered this is helpful.
Absolutely, yes. Because again, you couldn't even come to that realization if you were brain dead. It wasn't an option before. So, and again, I think in the progression of our practice, we will use, I'm going to use the word technique. I don't know if it's the best word, but we'll use whatever techniques that fit for that moment. And sometimes that can be, wait a minute, I'm not really an innocent victim. Okay, because if I chose this, then it's a result of that. And I can't play brain dead any longer. I can't play, well, it's all his fault. Then we can take on, well, wait a minute, if I chose, and not as Marianne, but as the decision maker, if I chose that choice, I consciously made that choice, and I can consciously make a different choice now. So again, it's like the mind just keeps cracking open more and more and more, and the possibility of me reconnecting to truth starts to open up more and more.
And you can say that I don't like this, right? That's
Absolutely.
another.
Yes. And I mean, I'll even say, like, okay, the way I see this is blah, 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 blah. And that's the way my experience is. But you keep telling me there's another way of seeing this, and I sure can't see this at this point in time. But I trust that you have a better way of seeing this than I do. And I'm willing to let go of my investment in the way I see this to have you show me what that is. And that way you kind of covered all this. It's not like you're denying it. You're being brutally honest with what the experience is, but you're also opening the door to, okay, I'm ready to check, at least peek at what you've got to offer.
So Marianne, is this, I don't know what terms to use, but
Yeah.
Is this
Go for it.
more of taking accountability for the choices we make and seeing what part we played in it?
Yes, but I know and I'm only going to use this explanation because I know you've come from a program. In the accountability aspect of a 12-step program, you're taking on the responsibility. Okay, I blame that person for A, B, C, D. Okay, and I understand now that I don't want to blame that person because it was my choice or something. But this is, I guess you could say, even a little higher in the respect that this hero, the dream called me, responded in relationship to that person, not because of what Mary Ann thought, did, believed, or any of those things, was because the choice for separation was engaged, and the effect of that got played out in that particular scenario. So I would say in some respects, the word usage could be similar, but take it to a higher level of that was simply an effect of what that choice was. And I would also add to that, to continue doing, you know, the program you're doing, if that's helpful, and that's obviously been beneficial to you. But keep listening to the words of the Course, and keep, you know, being open to the possibility of what those words are telling you, so that eventually one day perhaps the specifics of the program you're working in will be tweaked in a slightly different way and a higher level. Does that help?
It does, yeah.
Okay, all right, good. Because again, we're not going to throw away the bath, you know, the baby with bathwater kind of thing. And obviously, if we have a program that's working really well in our lives, we don't want to throw it away until it becomes the new program, I guess you could say, begins to take over, and that one is not as fulfilling as what the new one is. That help?
It does, and
Okay.
I don't know that it would be a taking over. I think it would just be an addition to.
Well, okay, that
Yeah.
would be a better word.
But I think it just comes down to just you know, getting through A Course in Miracles and figure out what the terms are, and just because I mean, you know, I'm so
Absolutely.
darn new to it. So.
Right. Well, and there are obviously many strange terminologies in the Course that take us all a very long time to, like, what is he talking about? You know, I've often thought, I wish he would have just taken a totally new vocabulary and started all over, but he doesn't. He takes familiar words like forgiveness and, you know, lots of different things, and then he gives them a totally different definition in the Course, and it does get very confusing at times. So
Well, it just takes time.
yes, absolutely. Okay. All right, let's see, where did we leave? All right, so yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering. Okay, so what this, I'm going to actually read line 5 first again. All right, he must be innocent because he knows not what he does, but what is done to him. So we don't remember that we're the ones that made the choice that brought forth this effect. So we don't remember that, but, and so he has no reason to be held responsible. As long as I'm working within the context of this square, that doesn't enter the possibility of a way to solve the problem, because all I have to work with is this. It would be like if you were working on a project and you were in one room, and you know the stuff you need to work on is in another room, but you haven't entered the other room to get the stuff. You would have to work with whatever you had to work with in that room, and maybe you wouldn't be able to build the thing that you want to build the best way, but if that's all you had to work with, you would do the best you could. And that's literally what all of us have done since we've worked with this illusion and popped into this world, because we didn't know there was other supplies in the other room that would be much more beneficial to our accomplishing our task. All right, yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the witness to suffering. So what Jesus is saying with that is, okay, when we projected into the world from here to here, and we projected it outside of ourselves, we thought we got rid of it. But number one, we still have the blueprint in our mind. And number two, even though this is seemingly different than me, no longer part of me, I get to reap the effect of it by feeling like I've been attacked or judged, or, you know, there's some type of an irritant or upset or something that's coming from something outside of me. But I don't know it's coming literally from me, because it's what I put there. And I just want to kind of interject as well. You know, if you know anything about any aspects of dream interpretation, even a slight bit, you probably are aware that if a psychologist was working with you and they were trying to evaluate a dream, they would take all the characters in your dream and they would explain to you that each one of those characters was an aspect of you. Well, quite literally, both of these two characters are coming from the Son of God's mind. And we each individually have our tiny little pane of glass, or whatever you want to call it, that has both of these thought systems. And each one of us individually can choose which thought system we want to adhere to. But we didn't know that we're all adhered to this one, because that occurred before we popped into the world as an individual character. So it kind of like, we popped in, that's the way it was, this is all I got to work with. So for whatever reason, we found our way to this class of the Course in Miracles. The Course in Miracles is now trying to help us understand, but that was the setup. That's where the blueprint lies. You're just getting to see the outside projection of the blueprint, but everything within the structure of what you now see had to have come from the blueprint that's in your mind.
Marianne, question.
Sure.
You've probably been talking about this, and I'm going through one of those episodes where you know how you read the Course and you read the same thing over and over again, or you're listening to Ken, only you're really planning what you're having for dinner tonight. Mm-hmm. So you've probably been answering this question right along, but you said that we have to become aware before we can become willing. Correct. Can you say some more about the relationship? Or maybe it's like the awareness that and I know that's a hard thing to talk about, right. Or to put into words. Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what am I becoming aware of?
Well, you're that way? Okay. So, you know, we talk very frequently in the idea of the little willingness, okay?
Yeah.
All right. So the little willingness is basically being aware. And, you know, I think the awareness comes as we listen and we practice and we come to classes and you hear the words and all that kind of stuff of the Course. But we start to become aware on a more conscious level that this is the setup. Because before, when we were just here, we didn't know there was a setup. We just knew we had to deal with whatever was in front of us to the best of our ability. But now we're starting to at least intellectually realize that this is an effect of this. And this wouldn't be here unless this was the setup. So as we talk about the idea of becoming aware, it's as you're walking through your day, and I know you've shared stories before, Helene, of how you're now, you know, you're in the middle of a conflict or an irritation, and then a thought comes in your mind of, wait a minute, you could choose differently. In whatever form that shows up. Okay. That is what I would call awareness, because before you didn't have an awareness. It was just a kill or be killed, knock each other down until one of you, you know, walks away dead, or one's dead and the other one moves on. But now it's like this, wait a minute, what's going on here? Of course,
it's sort of a framework.
Yeah.
In other words.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I could choose this one instead of that one.
Right. Okay. And I wouldn't be able to have that awareness unless part of my brain deadness had not already awakened a little bit.
Gotcha.
That wouldn't be available to me. Mm-hmm. And I know Bob started the class saying something like he still doesn't know when he's in his right mind. And you know, we all struggle with that. Not making fun of Bob. But the very fact that we are having these cracks of awarenesses, or even the memory of the words of the Course that pop in of, wait a minute, what's going on here? We're not as solidly invested in this any longer. And to the degree that we're not as solidly invested in this, we are really accessing our right mind. Now, are we in the happy dream where I don't come back? Well, not obviously not yet, but we're certainly making all the little cracks or the little shifts that are being asked of us to the best of our ability where we are right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Because that's because something is making sense to us about this new concept.
Absolutely.
Something is starting to feel like a life raft in our life, in our world, in our with God,
Correct.
that we had no access to before.
Right. And, in the words of Bill and Helen, there has to be another way. Well, we've intellectually come in contact with that other way. And now it becomes I guess you could say the practice or the awareness of what those words mean in our daily life experiences, where we become more and more in tune with, wait a minute, I don't want to go there anymore. I mean, I've had experiences like literally I'll walk into a room and I can feel the unsettledness of that room and immediately ask for help. And nothing's even occurred in my world per se, but I could even feel the energies, kind of coming towards me. Now I can't do that all the time, but it's like you just become much more fine-tuned, and you don't get sucked into the world and the issues of the world quite as long, quite as deeply, quite as much. And then they can still take you for a good ride, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as solid as it used to be. And
yes, instead of like kind of capitulating to the sound of the weed whacker, I say, oh, I don't like this. What can I do other than think about it?
Yeah.
What other thought could I have besides that is what I really am asking the Holy Spirit, whether I say all that or not. I'm interested in not letting that ruin my my peace.
Right. But, and I think that, and absolutely, but I would say if you compared that this morning to 5 years ago or 6 years ago when you started, Andrea, would that be the same response you would have had to the weed whacker this morning? Your natural flow to, oh, yeah.
Well, I think even, even before the pandemic, I would have been more hostile toward that.
Yeah, right. And I think, the ego's always going to say, well, you're not doing this very well, and you could have done, why didn't you do that sooner and whatever. And I think we really need to, rather than get upset or frustrated when we're not always on the mark every single time when stuff comes up, remind ourselves, the girl that walked into this course X amount of years is not the girl that's sitting here right now. And the girl that's sitting here now is not going to be the same girl that keeps working on the course in 5 years. Because it's, and I've given the example before of walking, stopping or starting the course is like walking into a room that's totally filled with the thickest cloud of fog you could ever imagine. And you can't see the room, you can't see the people, you can't see the chairs or tables, and you knock into stuff and whatever. And each time you ask for help, and again, the only way you can ask for help is to know that help is available to ask. And then, of course, you have to have the willingness. But each time you choose, each time, sorry about that, every single time you ask, that thickness of that fog is dissipating. So, you might ask and come back here and this looks just exactly like it did before. Maybe it sometimes even appears to be worse than it was before. But the cloud of fog is being dissipated. So that's really, and you won't necessarily notice that that's an effect that's occurring. But the Course describes the idea that every single time you ask, and you leave and go here and come back, the person that comes back is not the same person that left, even 1 instant ago. So it's working every time you ask. And for those of you who ever saw the movie Back to the Future, if you remember one at the part of it, Michael J. Fox had a picture of his siblings and himself that he had on his guitar. And because he showed up in the past, he interfered with his parents' meeting the way that they met. And so he had to try to figure out a way to get them to get together so that they would get married and then have his siblings and himself. So, but in this process, the picture was dissipating because the solidity of the investment of his parents being together was being erased. Well, the solidity of this, by choosing for this, is being erased. So the solidness, the seriousness, the heaviness of this begins to have less potent experience on you. And you'll begin to have things that happened to you 5 years ago where today you go, wow, man, I hardly even responded to that. Now, other things may still be affecting you, but many of them will slowly begin to drop away because you're not investing in them. And understand, you're either taking that, every instant you're putting the quarter in here or you're putting the quarter in here. And whichever one you're investing in, that's the bank account that's growing. Now understand that this bank account was pretty full when we started because we've been investing in this bank account since the Big Bang. And as Ken's wife used to say, when we had the choice between the ego and the Holy Spirit, we chose the ego. And again, we blocked this off the memory. This room is still available, but we're no longer aware of it. And she made the comment that we mind melded with this thought system. And this is the thought system that has been running the show since the Big Bang. And it's been reinforced and reinforced and reinforced and reinforced over and over again. And the way we unreinforce this thought system is to drop it and begin to choose for this thought system. And the only way I can do that is if I'm aware that I have another choice that I can do that. And then it's, do I have the willingness to let this go to choose this? Yeah, Andrea, were you going to say something?
Then, and also it's the quality of peace is something that isn't measurable, except to be drawn into a different sense of what's going on. So it's like the answer is right in that quality, because you not because you say I want peace, but because you decided to not go after the other stuff that to just let it go. And that quality is I would say, it's like the thing that keeps you going. It's not even a thing. It's like this indescribably delicious feeling of you're off the hook finally.
Yes.
And that's what we're all looking for. We don't like how the world spins us around this way and that way, even though we spend a lot of time talking about it, and we're not living out of it though. We're going through it now. We're not living out of that that hardcore time, space, past, future monotony. We're tapping into that, to the miracle, and to just taste that for 1 second.
Right.
Is to not to say we're not going to go back to the way we have to get through the world, because that's the whole point, but it just really doesn't. The peace is something so far removed from all the other stuff going on that it's just worth it. It's finally you found something that's worth it.
Right. And I think that's the beauty of the continuing to have the willingness to drop the irritant and ask for healing, is slowly you'll begin to have the reflection of love in your life instead of the constant bombardment of the judgmental kill or be killed being thrown your way. And those are precious moments that draw us forward, because I like that. I don't know what I have to go through to get to that, but I like that. So our desire to let go becomes more intensified, because, you know,
And this,
on
don't
the
you
text.
think the also the same way that we've come through the world, you know, hitting our head up against the wall and saying, no, that didn't work, that wasn't right. That the same, the whole absence of that wringing of your hands and, you know, wishing you hadn't said that, or we know that all of that is just gone. It's just, I guess that's just the way the course works too, is it doesn't tell you, but it removes the obstacles to peace.
Right.
And then the minute one of those obstacles is removed and, you know, you didn't do it, you just said, okay, Jesus, okay, God, Holy Spirit, help me. In that breath, you've decided that there's another way and you're willing to try it, even if you don't get what it's about. And to hear other people tell of their travel through it and their, you know, their attachment to peace, or maybe just the way they're more calm and aren't arguing all the time, is also the thing that can lead us on, I think.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Mary,
Right. Well, yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a question about that. Does my behavior change?
It could, or it may not. And you see, that's part of what you were talking about last week, Rose, of my job is to drop this and choose this. What happens after that's none of my business. And sometimes your behavior may change. Sometimes the circumstances may change. You know, lots of possibilities are there, but that is not for me to decide. It's when this is out of the way, love is, you know, it's like, well, remove the blocks to the awareness or remove the clouds from the sun. The sun will shine through in its perfect way.
Because I had an interesting experience yesterday. It was a really stressful week at work.
Okay.
And yesterday, I asked my brother around lunchtime to go get us both smoothies at this smoothie place.
Right.
And he came back and they gave him the wrong one for me. And I took it and I flung it across the kitchen with a lot of expletives coming out of my mouth. And part of me was really shocked at this. There was like, what are you doing? And then there was another part where it was like, I knew I was not upset about the smoothie.
Right.
But I still saw the judgment of, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that you're not progressing, you're regressing, you shouldn't have done that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's such a tightly woven thought aspect of our mind, you know, and it's that good girl, bad girl programmed aspect of ourselves. And, you know, just again, smile at that, look at it and recognize, oh, I guess there's still a part of me that wants to be in judgment, and here it is. Because eventually and I'm not there either myself, don't get me wrong, but when we really know it's just a play, how would I have a judgment against that?
Yeah.
But you are stuck. I mean, but you're, despite the fact that you weren't at that perfected place, or I hate to even use that word, but at that place, but look at all the, you know, all the facets of that experience that you were conscious of and you were aware of. That in the past you would have just thrown that off and probably told Mark to clean it up when you got done. You know, I mean, it's whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you know, afterward it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's because part of me was it in that moment that I flung it, I wasn't doing it. I can't explain that.
Yeah.
I was watching it, but I was still judging it because I was like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
It was, it was interesting. I have not had an episode like that in years. It's probably been like 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm still looking at it, I guess.
Yep. Well, yep. And you know,
The ego trying to bring you back in line again.
absolutely. And it,
Well, you know, the other way I see it though, Bob, is ego's fighting for its life.
Right.
Because it knows on some level, you're on your way up, bud.
yes, and as we know, the Course specifically even states some of the times that we get the closest, the ego becomes vicious, if not malicious. Well, what better way to bring you, slap you back where you belong than here's another judgment. And I'm justified in judging myself for this, because what's wrong with me that I have to throw this thing across the room? And you do your best to just kind of bring it back to, okay, wait a minute. This is what happens. I'm going to look at it and see what I can learn from that experience. And sometimes it's almost as though we can't see what the classroom is providing us until we've walked through it and done it. And then
Yeah.
we can kind of evaluate it. And if it hadn't been for the intensity of it, it would not have called your attention.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
But
good.
but don't beat yourself up. This is what egos do.
Yeah, I'm not really beating myself up. In fact, right after it happened, it was like, oh, well, now I guess I got to clean this up. You know, I think I was judging myself more while it was happening, right? The moment after, because really, I mean, nothing really happened. Some smoothie got on the floor, a big deal, you know. But yeah, the intensity, and it happened so quick. It was like boom, and then back to normal.
Just like the
normal.
separation. Just
Yeah.
like the separation, tiny mad idea, boom. What's wrong with the little slapstick comedy? I guess that's what the ego's after. Look, who made this big mess? I would love to have been there. I would love to be able to get angry like that and throw a smoothie in the kitchen. I think it's cathartic. Yeah, it's cathartic to be able to throw things and get away with it. Like I've been far too quiet and prissy my whole life, but that sounded like a fun thing to do. Sorry.
And you know, I do, well, I don't usually do that, but if I have that kind of emotion coming up, I will go in the car and scream while I'm driving. I don't do that frequently, but I have done that quite a few times. It's very helpful to just get
I've done that. Yeah, I've done that.
But it's very helpful to get that emotion out.
Yes.
And something else that popped up for me with that, Rose, is, as you said, it happened so quickly, and then you realized it, and then you let it go. I mean, even that's huge. As opposed to 5 years ago, if something like that happened, you probably would compulse over it, and you'd
Yes.
like, oh my God, what, or years or lifetimes.
Right. And I immediately apologized to my brother, because I could imagine what he was thinking. And I just said to him, I'm really sorry. I don't know where that came from. I'm just under a lot of stress at work, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the devil made me do that, right?
Again.
The devil made me wear this blue dress.
All right, so paragraph 1, line 7. Well, let's do 6. Yet is his own attack upon himself apparent still, for it is he who bears the suffering. Well, there's a good example of Rose got to experience the suffering of what was in her mind. But at the instant that this occurred, she wasn't aware of that. But she can now observe that and see that playing out. And he cannot escape because its source is seen outside of himself. But you're aware that the source isn't outside of myself, because as you mentioned, as you started to tell this story, you know, I know that wasn't the reason I was even upset. It was something else. So it's like we just keep catching ourselves faster and faster and faster and faster. And then the ego, and I often use the example of, we have to become private investigators of the ego, and, you know, carry around your magnifying glass and look, fine tune all the ways the ego can suck us in and take us for a ride. And as we are able to do that, more and more, we can catch it faster and we can drop it faster. And it's not rose dropping it. It's, you know, oh, well, there it happened. Well, I can move on and, you know, follow through in my day. Where again, in the past, we would just stick it in our backpack and carry it and drag it around for, you know, hours, days, months, or years, or lifetimes, because that's how strong of a hold the ego had. And this is a good indication that it's just not, it can't do its job like it was doing its job before. But it is going to continue to try to slip you up, though, because it's just fighting for its life, as you said.
And I should add, I was also aware that I was enjoying, there was a part of me that was enjoying that.
Okay, cool. You know, and that again is Rose, the hero of the dream, exists. And you see, we like to exist. Being over here means I don't exist. And so we will, I mean, if you become very consciously aware of the goings on of the ego, you will find yourself occasionally becoming aware that things are just a little too still and quiet here. Something needs to be rumbled up a bit here. And, you know, it might be very subtle, but that little game does get played out and gets put forward. And just
It's
observe.
also a feeling. It's also a feeling of power, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely, yes, definitely, and in control. That was the best way you could control that situation. And I mean, you were an innocent victim. They brought you the wrong damn thing. You know, and that's the whole. Just observe from all the different directions that this can be played out. All righty. So paragraph number 2, now you are being shown you can escape. And I'm actually just going to read a couple lines because I want to talk about something else. Now you are being shown you can escape. All that is needed is for you to look upon the problem as it is and not the way that you have set it up. And what is it, or how is it versus how you set it up? How it is it appears that we're an innocent victim of circumstances beyond control, but how we set it up was from the thought of separation, that we couldn't tolerate the effects, which were guilt, sin, and fear, and then that got projected into the world. So the problem isn't the milkshake. The problem is the fact that we've chosen to separate, and this is an effect of that getting played out in the many mirrored ways they can be played out within the context of the illusion. So I'm going to stop there and share a story that I came across on one of Ken's tapes this week, which I was really, I'm almost useless. I can't even find words to explain it, but I just thought it was so profound that I wanted to share it. And the story was about a gal who was probably in her 20s who shared a story in a class Ken was giving. And the woman's mother had been on drugs, and she was mentally ill all of this girl's life. And so most of her childhood was spent in terror of, you know, when's the next time my mother's going to abuse me or beat me or do harm to me. And this girl explained that she even felt that she would probably die as a result of her mother beating her sometime in her life. Now this girl, and we'll call her Jane just to make a face here, whatever, was now an adult, and she was somebody who had kind of separated from her mom, and she lived in a different state. And she began to study the course, and it kind of sounded like she was a fairly new student. And she had to go see her mother for some reason. I can't remember what the reason was. But when she got to the state where she was going to go visit her mother, she did call her mom And she said that she could tell by her mother's response that mom was in one of her moods, and it was probably not going to be a very good encounter when they got together. So she, came all prepared to defend herself and do her best to survive this experience. And I think, not everybody in this group of people that are listening to what I'm sharing right now perhaps had a childhood like that. But I know that every single person in this group has had people in our situations in our lives. Maybe it's even a parent-child relationship where every time you go home, you're that little child, you're not the adult that you are now. And all the feelings of all the issues that we've ever had come running to the surface as soon as we're in the presence of that person. Or perhaps you might have been in a war situation and you have post-traumatic stress. And if anybody even speaks of a war or situations like that, all that emotional tie comes to the surface. So we all collectively know that experience. Maybe it wasn't as dramatic as this particular story is, but we all know that experience. So as she went to visit her mother, the mother started coming at her with her usual abusive, probably words, and attacking her and whatever. And as usual, she became that vulnerable little child. But because she was studying the course, again, she became aware enough in her mind. And so the thought of the workbook lesson that she had been working on that particular morning was, I could see peace instead of this. And so in the midst of this encounter with her mother, she began to silently remind herself of that workbook lesson. And again, I could see peace instead of this. And she certainly was not convinced that this was going to do any good because it was a pretty raw experience, but she continued with it anyways. And in this experience, she just literally stood there and stared at her mother. She didn't react, she didn't respond, which was the natural way she would normally have done it. And then tears just started to fall. And her mother looked at her, and she said she didn't remember that her mother ever looked at her in her entire life. But her mother looked at her and then walked over and began to brush her tears away. And following that, they sat down and had a cup of tea. And then the girl left, and not long after that, the mother passed away. And so Ken's response to all of that was that moment, and the Course talks about a holy instantism. I'm not sure if it's a holy instant. What is the word usage? I meant to look it up, but I forgot. A holy encounter is a moment where an ancient hate turns into a present love. And at that moment, the situation came to a point where that healing in that moment could take place. And he went on to explain to this girl that for the first time in that girl's life, she opened that space of love to her mother. See, her mother, because she had chosen for the separation instead of love, walked the world, just like all of us walk the world, waiting for someone, something, or some circumstance to come to us, to affirm to us that we're a piece of shit and we're not worthy of love. But for that moment, she was able to shift that situation and allow that love to be present for her mother. And that made a huge shift in her experience. Now, the unfortunate thing of what this story is I'm sharing is that we can do all the things that girl did, but not have such a profound effect that seemed to shift so brilliantly within the reflection of love into the world. But even if that doesn't physically occur, every single time we ask in any way of an opening to show me who I am, show me who my brother is, that same kind of an experience is taking place. And we have to really kind of get in touch with, we are all walking wounded in this world, all of us. each and every one of us. And any one of us that responds in anything than love is responding from that place because we believe we've killed off God, and we believe we're guilt, sin, and fear. And in that one workbook lesson, it says, I believe I am the home of evil, sin, and darkness. And if anyone could see who I really was, they would recoil as though I was a snake. We're not consciously aware of that. None of us are, but we're all walking around with that response within our beingness. And what we're really all looking for is anyone to say, no, that's not true. You are love. Even if we're not ready to accept that, that's what we're looking for. And to me, the power of this course, though, to come to that moment, to be able to just stop and just choose for an experience of love instead of the attack defense mode that we're normally in, is probably one of the hardest things any one of us will ever have to do. But once you've done it a couple times, it does begin to become easier, because we are so programmed to kill or be killed. It's the programming of the robot or the puppet's brain to be a kill or be killed vehicle, and to be able to put the brakes on that and say, no, I'm just not going to go there any longer. This no longer serves me. I thought this was going to be the answer. It's not the answer, and I refuse to go there this instant. You know, show me who I am, or, you know, I could choose peace instead of this. Whatever comes forth as an awareness that reminds us, I don't have to stay stuck in this hole any longer, and I can change. And with that, not only are you offering that person an acceptance of love and forgiveness, you're offering that same thing to yourself. And every time we continue to play the response that normally takes place in a kill or be killed setup world, we're reinforcing the very thought system we swear we don't want. But every time we can drop it and choose differently, even for a split second, that's the answer to the undoing of this entire thought system. And it's available to us because now we're aware. Before we didn't know, we were brain dead. There was no other option. This is the whole course. And, you know, Ken would say specifically, the number one most important thing about the understanding of this course is that it's showing us that we don't have to be brain dead. There is another choice. Even if we can't access that at this moment because I'm too in terror to let go, I know it's there. I didn't know it was there before. Before, all I had to work with was this box, and I couldn't find the answer in this box because the answer was not in this box.
Beautiful.
Marianne,
Go ahead.
I was listening to this story myself this week.
Oh, really? Okay. How interesting is that?
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
So what I was touched by is when Ken says, and it was such a moving revelation for this young woman, but he says afterwards, that's all anybody ever wants from us, is that experience of forgiveness that happens, you know, to the other and to us at the same time. And as you were retelling it, I was reminded of an experience that I had. Gee, it was a number of years ago. I went to see a counselor, and I walked into her office. I didn't know her from anything, but I sat down and I looked at her and I started crying. She had created the space for that to happen.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's what the course is calling forgiveness.
Right. And, you know, I like your example, Helene, because it wasn't something she said to you or what she did to you or what she told you to do or anything else like that. It's when we live in the presence of love, all we can offer is a space of love to somebody. But I can't do that as long as I'm aligned with this, because it's not available. But when I can drop this, even for that second, I'm saying, I want to know this. I don't want to hang with this any longer. And that's that's what the whole course is about, and that's literally what we're doing on planet Earth.
Of that whenever I'm going to go into a situation which I do not like, because it's going to be a touchy situation,
Right.
I say to myself that I want peace. Now when I say I want peace, that doesn't mean that person I'm going to meet with is going to be a loving person. But that's happened all the time, that the situation was completely a loving situation.
Oh, beautiful. Yep.
Even though I say I want to be at peace, even if it's not a loving situation.
Right.
But every time it is.
Okay, that's great.
And that works every time. It's never not worked.
Beautiful. I haven't had that experience of it being every time, so I'm glad for you. I mean, I'm serious.
But I don't do it much.
Well, okay. That's funny.
I think it has to do with how much we want it and how much we recognize that we can't do anything about something. That's been my experience. When I get to that bottom, it's like being in the bottom of the lake, and I have to push off of that in order to get to where I want to go. And there's nothing, I don't want to push off of it. I don't want to do anything. And I ask the Holy Spirit, I just say, I can't take this anymore. God help me. If you ever heard me, maybe I would shout out the door about it. I don't know. But that's what my experience has been in terms of something not being right, and asking and being told by the Spirit that I'm right as a perfect child, that my request is absolutely valid and I deserve an answer. And I've felt for a lot of my life that when I absolutely,
I think we lost her. I think
that's okay, that when I absolutely couldn't hold it together anymore.
I don't know where she went. We lost you again, Andrea.
I must be pressing the button. That's what Helene always talks about when we talk on the phone, that we press the button, the wrong button. That's okay. The Holy Spirit, I'm going to hold on to that button as much as I can. Thank you. Okay.
But I would agree. It really is, when we're at the bottom, when there is no Mary Ann there left to make a choice, a decision, finagle her way out of a situation. Those are the moments that the answer can come most readily, because I don't have the investment in figuring it out any longer. I come with my hands washed and I'm done. And so that's when answers can come much more readily. But
Yes.
even if you don't get that reflection of the way that you think it should look, know it's happening, know it's working. If you're conscious enough to drop it and you're willing to ask for healing, a shift is happening every single time. And in workbook lesson 135, it says, if I defend myself, I'm attacked. Now, that's a real hard lesson to really grasp, because it appears if I'm being attacked, I need to defend myself. And the example of this girl that I just read, talked about the story. She had to do her best to defend herself against this mother who was abusive and terrifying. But that moment where she was able to just stand present in love made the shift of something totally different to unfold. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to talk. And to me, I believe that's one of the reasons why, the understanding of the Course, the metaphysics of the Course, and to constantly rehash some of this information over and over and over again is so helpful for myself, and hope for everybody else as well, because it's like you can hear this information, it's like, yeah, that's nice. And then, throw it back on the dresser or whatever. And then it keeps coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. And then suddenly it just gels. And it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I got it over there, but now it's coming together. And I really understand what he's been saying all this time. And so as we keep, listening and hearing and repeating it and reading it over and over and over, it comes to that point where it becomes second nature. And it's not the struggle that it is when we first start practicing the course and trying to do this. And eventually we begin to generalize this with absolutely positively everything that comes into our experience. And I know I read a couple of weeks ago, what was it? Where you go? Okay, is it here? Anyways, it was something to the effect of being able to respond or stay in the place of peace no matter what anybody does. And it went on to say something to the effect of, they can be as hurtful and as cruel as they want to be. It won't disturb your peace because you're coming from a place of peace instead of a place of defense or attack. And Jesus understands that this is a journey. This is a practice. This is, he calls it a course. You build on everything that you learn and make it more solid as you go along, just like you do math or anything else that we've ever studied. But he keeps, and we know he repeats the same things throughout the course because he wants us to be reinforced of what it is he's really saying. I used to go to the foundation after a while. It was like, well, he's saying the same thing as he said last time. But it was almost like I had to hear it more because I had to be convinced that I was really sure that that's really what he meant. Because this is so diametrically opposed to everything in our world. All right. And, the idea of defenselessness in the face of attack, that's not easy to come by because we're so set in our ways of, I've got to show them that I'm right. And again, that's part of our programming. All right. And I just also want to make one more comment in the idea of the importance, and again, this is a metaphysical concept from the Course as well, that he's constantly reminding us, and just in the section that we were reading on the hero of the dream, he mentioned it 3 times, but it's the world you see depicts exactly what you thought you did. We thought we killed off God. We had that belief that we were bad, then we projected it into the world. And another quote, the world that demonstrates an ancient truth that you will believe that others do to you exactly what you think you did to them. And let them, here it is, let them be as hateful and vicious as they may, they could have no effect on you unless you fail to recognize it is your dream. So, he's constantly reminding us, or in that prayer, the secret of salvation is I'm doing this to myself. Well, the hero of the dream, when I identify with that, does not come anywhere close to the belief that I did this to myself. That doesn't enter the picture. But if we lift the curtain and find out that that was what made the effect that we're seeing, living, and experiencing, and may I add that we want to see, live, and experience because we wanted a camouflage to hide the truth because we were afraid of the love of God. And fortunately, we're starting to crack that cosmic egg, and we're starting to have glimpses that there is a way out, and I can choose that way out. Even if it's not now, it's available. And that's huge, 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 huge.
Marion, can I ask a question? This is Ginny.
Sure. Hi, Ginny, go ahead.
Okay, so, because like I've had some experiences lately where people have said something and I'll just think to myself, well, that seemed kind of rude.
Right.
So what you're saying is you don't really have to say anything and defend yourself.
No.
You just have to hold the peace, and then that will kind of soften the situation.
Yeah, and let me just reiterate here that you know, if words come out of your mouth like, well, that wasn't very nice, or you were rude, and why did you do that to me, or whatever, you know, be gentle with yourself, because we're still very addicted to responding out of kill or be killed, which is basically what that is. But as we develop a spiritual awareness from the aspect of the Course, we start to realize I'm talking to a puppet. They don't hear me any more than I hear them. You know, I mean, literally, puppets don't really communicate. The only real communication comes from either the choice for the ego or the choice for the Holy Spirit. And again, you can even ask for healing, and then you might decide, no, I'm not satisfied yet. I got to go tell them again. I have to tell them still. Go ahead and tell them, but make sure you do the puzzle part of asking to have your mind healed, because that's the most important part. And when you really begin to connect with that more and more, your need to think you have to tell them something will just fall away.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. But that's way powerful, because I can, you know, try to convince them I'm right until I'm blue in the face, which we all have tried many times. And I think Andrea mentioned the idea of banging your head against the wall. And I think we've all done that many times, because we're trying to find a way to make sure they understand that I have a better plan than they have. But they can't hear your words, because they're coming from a mind that believes attack and defense are real. But if I come to the mind that where we're joined, the separated aspect of each one of us no longer exists. But I have to be willing to access that. Any other comments before we go back to paragraph 2?
No, yes, I'd like to say something.
Sure, go ahead, Bob.
Sometimes is what I do if a person attacks me and they're way out of bounds. Why I try to, and most of the time it works. I look at them and say what they're saying has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's all about them. And again, this person is calling for love.
Yes, correct. And that's so correct, Bob. And the situation with this is, whether that person, let's say I was looking at Bob, let's say I was looking at somebody behind Bob, and I point my finger and say something to the person behind Bob. If Bob is in a place of feeling guilty or sinful, he could hear my words being directed at him, but they might not even have anything to do with him. But if I'm coming from a place of guilt, I will take them in as mine. But even if I came up to Bob and I brutally said, acted, or whatever, you know, in a very attacking, unkind, loving way, it doesn't matter which one of those two scenarios is taking place. If I'm really coming from a high spiritual place, my response would be identical, because it would be, I believe they're calling for love, or yes, they are really calling for love. And my response would always be, if I was at a place where I was able to maintain that, my response would be to give them love.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter what they're doing. Now, in my experience, when I'm identified with the ego, it sure does seem like there's something going on there, and I don't like it, and I better, you know, tell them about it. But they're not listening.
Plus, also, if the person is attacking me, it's really my picture anyhow.
Yes, absolutely. So we're really, well, again, I'm seeing exactly what I want to see. I am, you know, that prayer, I am responsible for what I see. I choose the experiences that I have. Well, if I'm having these, if I have chosen that and I'm experiencing the experiences that I want to have, what part do they play? None. But my experiences, they're the problem, not me.
Right.
Again,
So if then to look at it from the standpoint of the Holy Spirit, that that person is calling for love, that they're not, you don't feel they're exhibiting love, they're calling for love, but you can't control what their body does. You can't control that. That's the part that you know, all you can do is love and be love. You can't tell them what love is. because that isn't a part of the way it works.
It is so correct, but watch us try.
Right, I mean, because you can see them and say, well, then you say, oh, it's unfortunate the way they're talking, and you could tell somebody that, but then who's suffering?
Correct.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah, you're the ones.
right. Yeah, and there's a place in the course, and it's kind of irritating when you're first starting out with the course, but it basically says whichever one of the people involved has a more healed mind, has the choice or opportunity to choose differently. So if I'm starting on this journey of the course and I'm getting a little better at it, but I'm not that great at it, but if I expect someone who doesn't have a clue to step up to the plate, I might as well forget it, because it's not going to happen. It's more, I need to step up to the plate when I'm ready.
And
Because really it's you're seeing them being unhealed, that's bothering you. It's not bothering them, because they're innocent in the way they're coming through the world just the same way you are, and but they're not listening to what the Holy Spirit has to say, perhaps, but they can't. And if you can, then you're the one. It's like you're left holding the bag, but because that's the way it works with the Holy Spirit. And then you get to have the benefit, and they reap the benefit too, but they don't have to know it. But right. You've been quietly, whatever the Holy Spirit's told you to say or do.
Right. And it's all just to let me know, what teacher am I listening to? Once again, Byron Katie has a great quote: defense is the first act of war. Mm. So the moment, the second, the nanosecond that I need to defend myself, I'm over here. I'm on the left side of the chart. Yep. I'm gone. Yep. Regardless if I say anything or I don't say anything.
Correct.
And for me, it's the moment awareness to that comes.
Yes.
Then I can stop and I can take a look at it. It doesn't matter if I say something to that person, if I don't say something to that person, they're showing me something. That's it. The moment I get defensive, they're showing me something. I'm over here. That's all they're telling me.
Yep.
Yoo-hoo, you're over here.
Yeah.
That's it.
And if we don't go through the trail of, oh, they shouldn't have done this, and why did they do this, and I have to tell them, if we stop that middleman, I guess you could say, which eventually does get collapsed after we practice a long time, and just realize, oh, they're telling me that I'm identified with my ego and I can do something different. And that's, the concept of generalizing. Initially, we want to go through the steps of being very conscious of what the whole stepping stone process is. But eventually it'll just be, okay, I'm here again. I don't want, I want to go back home.
And they're showing me my own anger. Absolutely. They're showing me my dirt that I've pushed up under the rug, okay, that I don't want to look at.
Yes.
And in a moment to stop and see that, and to see my fear and to see my anger, you got to go through the dark to get to the light. Yes. Kim would say.
Yes. And in the words of the Course, my brother is my salvation. If it wasn't for my brother showing me that I could lose my peace, I would not know what was going on in my mind. What we set up was, my brother's the problem, and I point the finger at him. But if we begin to use the process the Course is saying, my brother is my salvation, because I could not know what was going on in my mind without them.
So whatever bad things happen to you is really a blessing.
So I had an experience this week, carrying around a lot of frustration, and a friend and I went to walk to the store, and a gentleman, this guy, started up his tractor trailer and barely missed hitting us. And looking in his face, is like, really? And for a moment, just freezing. Then we got into the parking lot. We were walking to Aldi's, and another guy comes up and almost hits her. And what the, white guys. And just seeing it, and whoa. And in that moment, just really, Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. The truth being that I'm walking around with all this angst, okay? All this political stuff, all the stuff that's going on, and they're showing me, kill. You know, I want, this ain't fair. This ain't right. Take them down.
Yep.
And seeing that, and then looking again at his face, you know, because, you know, you replay it in your mind, looking again in my mind and seeing, wow, I saw this innocence, a fear. It was so interesting. It was like, wow, there it is. And he didn't do nothing. You know, whatever I thought, it was in my imagination, and being responsible for that.
Yes, 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 yes.
You know, all the rest of it was imagination.
Yes.
And ego loves, it runs with it.
Sure, sure. And you know, your story was a good example of how, as you mentioned, you had all this angst in your mind, and obviously, you know, the news and society is bringing that to the surface for you, for everybody in their own way. And it's almost like you were just that angst waiting to find a face to put it onto. And we all, again, we all do this. And, you know, how many times have you been run off the road by a car and you want to pull up to them and look at them and see their face? And it's like, what do I get if I find out what they look like? And it's totally illogical, but we do these silly, crazy things. And as long as we are hell-bent on seeing them from that perspective, we can never see the innocence that they really are. And we don't want to see the innocence for what they are, as long as this thought system is the one I want to be intact. And this is the one that's running the show right now, because we mind melded with it. And it takes an effort for us to drop this and say, all right, I want to see my brother through the eyes of love. I don't know how to do that. Show me. And, you know, like the story I told of the girl, I mean, how could she possibly see the innocence of her mother, who every time, you know, every moment of her life basically was being attacked by this person? But in that moment, when she was able to ask differently, she was able to see her mother in the face of innocence. And it's not because of us, it's because of this. But it takes work, guys, because, you know, life is bubbling up, and, you know, there's so many possibilities to choose from on the board here, you know, and one of them will show up, and then we just go.
And we feel so justified with our pain and the exquisiteness of holding it, you know.
And the exquisiteness, yes. And you know, I think as we practice this more and more, we will get more and more in touch with the exquisiteness of that. Or as Rose said when she threw the milkshake, of the excitement and the thrill, or whatever it may be that comes up when, and the power, well, any of those, of that makes me feel real. And I like to be real. And I don't know that I like to be real even until those moments occur and we become more consciously aware.
I like the word too, right. I like to be right.
Well,
if I'm right, I'm real. Okay.
No question about it. In a kill or be killed scenario, I'm going to be right, or it's, you know, and of course the other person feels equally the same in regard to that. And there the fight begins. You know?
To be able to feel that that all of it, this young woman and her mother and the other things we've talked about today, that all of it is just about the mass at the end of the sponge is kind of a similar thing. It's, you know, we notice, we see this mess we've made, and we just go get the sponge, and it's instead of, it's a peaceful sponge. It's a peaceful, you notice the texture to it instead of how you're going to, you know, kill that drink that's on the floor, or how you're going to do anything at all. You're just going to allow, you know, the next thing to take place. Thank you.
Okay, so back to paragraph 2. Now you are being shown you can't escape. So again, a great deal of the purpose of having the awareness that I'm not brain dead and I have another choice is to help us recognize that we now have a way to escape this thought system. Again, in the square of the illusion, no way out. It's like being in a maze. You have to rise above the maze in order to get out of the maze. running around in the maze. You're going to have many corridors, but no answers. All that is needed is all that is needed is you look upon the problem as it is and not the way that you have set it up. And again, we'll take the example of the young girl. Now, she didn't know she set this scenario up so that her mother would constantly be beating her and abusing her. None of us know, are aware that we set up all the stuff that's happening in our daily life experiences. We're not consciously aware of that. And it was set up that way so that we would never, ever, ever leave this block. We would always be a sweet little innocent victim, and it would always be somebody else that would be the problem. But now we're starting to have that crack of awareness that this is not the problem. The problem is the choice. How could there be another way to solve a problem that is very simple, but has been obscured by heavy clouds of complication, which were made to keep the problem unresolved? So what's the cloud of complication? I think all of these things are the problem, and I've got to run around the world and solve each and every one of these problems so that I can find my way back to peace. And we all know that we've all scoured the world to solve the problems of our experience, and no matter how many we solve, a new one shows up at our door the next day. And that's going to continue to happen because we set it up to happen that way. I can't be an innocent victim without some aspect of the perpetrator, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, or an experience. And, there's a cute little line of kind of obnoxious from Jesus in the Course where it says, you say that learning this course is so hard and so complicated and so confusing. And he basically says, you made this entire world. Look how complicated and ridiculous it is. And you're going to tell me my course is difficult? If you could do this, you could undo this. That's how sorry he feels about it. All right. But in our experience, especially before we knew there was another way, how could it not feel that way? It feels hopeless. Without the clouds, the problem will emerge in all its primitive simplicity. So again, I've said this many times, if we didn't believe the illusion was real, and if we weren't addicted and attracted to it, we would choose for love all the time. It would be a no-brainer. It's like, ick, love, duh, let's go over here. But this is so complicated. It's so alluring. There's shiny coins. If I just get this one, then everything's going to be okay. It doesn't work. But boy, does it pull us in. The choice will not be difficult because the problem is absurd when clearly seen. Well, that's the problem. We can't see it clearly at this point. And even if we sit here and we consciously discuss, oh, I need to choose again. Sounds pretty simple. But then observe how quickly we get pulled into something or someone or some situation in the world. Even though intellectually, I have a pretty good idea of what the Course is saying now. The addiction to the illusion is still very, very intact. And it's going to do its job, which is to keep me stuck in the illusion and keep pulling me under. Even if intellectually I get it, until I can respond automatically to this just represents that this has got a stronger hold right now. And I don't need to hate that. I just simply need to become aware of it. And when I'm willing, then to choose again. No one has difficulty making up his mind to let a simple problem be resolved if it is seen as hurting him and also very easily removed. I give the example many times, if this is a pile of poop and this is a pile of whipped cream and you really like whipped cream, it would be a no-brainer. You would go and choose the whipped cream. But again, because we've given this the power to control us. Again, it really has no power in and of itself. It just has the investment we put into this thought system. And good or bad, we have been investing in this bank account for a very, very long time. So it's still running the show only because it's what we've ordered it to do. And the more we can stay firm in the choice for connecting with love, the more we'll undo or remove the blocks to the awareness of what we really are.
Marianne,
Yes, go ahead.
it's helpful to me just to realize how much I don't want peace. I want to be entertained. I want something with a plot. I want to go back and forth and watch that. And I'll get hooked into something, sometimes and just, I'm talking to the Holy Spirit and saying, I want to be here. I know there's another way and I'm not ready to choose it right now.
Yeah.
And just to be okay with that.
Yes. And
it's beautiful that Rose was able to throw her smoothie across the room. I love that. And I love the mind playing. I go, oh my God, what have I done? And apologize and do all of that stuff. But and the gap gets narrower.
Yes.
The gap gets narrower between, what we do and what we criticize ourselves for doing.
Yes, yes. And I so agree with you of just be what you are and don't judge it. Keep asking for healing, keep asking to be shown who you are, but don't judge that right now I'm not ready to be over there. And think about every play, every book, every story has a plot. It has the good guys and the bad guys and the white hats and the black hats. Well, that's a story of duality. We don't want a story of there's nothing.
Right.
And we can't force ourselves or pretend ourselves into that belief system. So, watch TV or read the book or whatever, but take the Holy Spirit with you and keep asking, show me how to come to that place where I'm not drawn to this any longer. But do it from a very gentle place, because the more we can honestly accept the fact that I'm aware I don't want it right now, the more we can be honest with ourselves with that, the faster the time will come when we will be able to drop it. But if I tell myself, oh, I am so there, oh, you just don't understand, I'm just fooling myself and I'm closing the door even harder and holding it real shut. Just very gently, okay, today I guess I'd rather watch TV than read my book than open my course. Okay, so that's where I am. And Jesus isn't going to take out a whip and beat us. He knows the reason why that is because you're terrified of the love of God. And right now you need a little reprieve. Maybe tomorrow you'll be ready to do it. But be gentle with ourselves, because he's really gentle with us. It is only we that is very hard on us.
But from what I understand, he doesn't come in the world to fix anything.
It's nothing to fix.
Right, because it's not real. And so is how I look at it, is when I'm asking for help, I'm asking for help to go into my right mind.
Absolutely, yes.
And then my right mind will tell me what to do.
Yes, definitely.
It's not Jesus.
Right, exactly. But, in the example I just gave of deciding you want to watch TV instead of read your book, you can have the Holy Spirit sit with you and show you that he loves you, even if you choose to read the book instead of choose to go home. And, that example that in Absence from Felicity, where Helen, and she had like a dream or a vision, I don't know what it was, where she was shopping with Jesus, and Jesus walked into the store and took a pantsuit, because this was like in the 70s when pantsuits were popular, and he gave it to her and said, here, this is all you're going to need. And then he walked away and she went back in the store and grabbed a whole bunch of them. He turned around and said to her, well, you only need one, but if you think you need that many, that's fine. He's not going to judge us where we are, because he knows where we are is the best we know how to be at this time. Even when you've done the stupidest, horriblest, most despicable thing 2 seconds ago that you could say to yourself, but I knew better than that. The facts are, how you responded in that instant was exactly the only way you could have responded in that moment. And we're being asked to just simply look at it and realize that's where I am without judgment.
Right. So this is the way I look at things when somebody criticized me, like what I'd done 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And my response is, well, I've done the best I could at that time with the information that I had.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think they're kind of piggybacking along that line. People will oftentimes say, well, I wish I'd have found the course when I was 18 or whatever. I could have saved all this time. It's all exactly unfolding as it needs to unfold at this moment. And, living in the moment and accepting this moment as the moment that I could heal or not, depending on what I do with it, is really what we're asked for, to look at and be in. And, we all spit up and pooped in our pants when we were babies. Duh, we all made many mistakes and will continue to make many mistakes in the process of practicing the course. But was it wrong if it eventually took me to the right choice? Not really.
Right.
The answer is just keep on keeping.
What you just said about things are unfolding as they should. It's interesting because I don't know if I think I might have told you, my cat, they found a mass in his stomach back in September.
Okay.
And so they wanted to do this operation and all that. And I really didn't want to do it because it's probably cancerous and there's no guarantees or anything. And it was a lot of money and all this.
Sure.
And so I didn't know what to do. And they gave him some prednisone to help him from throwing up. And I made a phone call. I was about to put him down in February, and I had an appointment with a holistic vet. And it worked out really, he's still with me. It's worked out really well. And I remember telling her, I said, I wish I found you sooner. And her exact words are, you found me when you were supposed to. And I'm like, that got me right there. I was like, she's so good. But yeah, everything does.
Yeah.
I think I have to remind myself I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in this moment.
Exactly. And quite literally, years ago, I had this realization, if I was supposed to be somewhere different than I am, wouldn't I be there?
Right.
And literally, we only have the moment in front of us to make a different choice. And what I did or didn't do in the past is gone. All I need to do is focus on this moment. And when we bring up stuff from the past, we're just strangling ourselves with something we have no control over any longer. And the ego's real good at that. So don't be surprised if it happens, but gently brush it aside when you can. All right, we're going to go to paragraph 3. The reasoning by which the world is made, on which it rests, by which it is maintained, is simply this: you are the cause of what I do. And what he means by this is another person or another situation that's taking my peace away. Your presence justifies my wrath, and you exist and think apart from me. While you attack, I must be innocent, and what I suffer from is your attack. No one who looks upon this reasoning exactly as it is could fail to see it does not follow, and it makes no sense. Yet it seems sensible because it looks as if the world were hurting you. And so it seems as if there is no need to go beyond the obvious in terms of cause. All right, so the reasoning by which the world is made, on which it rests, by which it is maintained, is simply this: you are the cause of what I do. And once again, the word reasoning is in quotes, and the word reasoning, or any word that's in quotes like that, represents the ego's way of being or thinking. So in the ego's thinking or being, the way the world was made and how it works and how it's maintained is always because it's your fault. And again, it can be our physical bodies or it can be anything else within the concept of the world. Basically, again, if it wasn't for you, I could be at peace. But as we start to understand, this is simply an effect of the cause that the Son of God set into motion. Then we have to start to look at this from a different place, because these rules do not apply if the problem is that instead of something or someone in the world.
None of us have ever said that before, huh?
Like, yeah, what was that?
I said none of us have ever said that before, huh?
Never. And certainly we never thought it either. Yeah, and you know, even again, as we become more intellectually understanding of the Course, be very aware your body is going to continue to do what your body was programmed to do. And that's another way the ego can catch you and get you, because it's now I've got this awareness, but dang, there goes my body responding the same old way that it always did. Understand that just because my thinking mind is starting to catch this, it doesn't mean the rest of my consciousness is caught up to me. So if you think of it, you think you know something, but you respond differently, know that that's because of the programming you're still under, and it's very addictive and it's running the show. And step back and go, oh, there I go again. I guess I must still be identified with my ego.
So Marianne,
yeah.
So Marianne,
yeah.
you can't if it bothers you that someone is speaking in a way that hurts your feelings, you can't really help that. You can't help that at all. That it bothers you that someone your feelings are hurt by what someone else is saying. You can't help that. That's the thing you have to ask the Holy Spirit for help with, because there isn't any other help.
Right, but I would reword that just slightly, in the respect that as the hero of the dream, you feel that you are not to blame for the fact that they're saying or doing something. But as the Son of God who made the choice to separate, you are getting that effect because of the choice of choosing against God. So though as Andrea, you didn't choose that, as an effect of the cause of the Son of God choosing for the ego, that was chosen, and the effect of it will play out in the world. But we have to start with where we are. And right now where we are is I'm identified with the hero of the dream, or the character of the dream called Andrea. And I was walking along, everything was fine, and so said or did something. And you know, my emotions come to the surface, and I'm hurt, and I might be crying, or I might be upset, and you know, whatever emotional stuff comes with that. And recognize, okay, wait a minute, that's my experience. And, you know, don't try to deny it. That's the experience you are having. And be very aware that this hero has been programmed with emotions and fears and, you know, and a possibility of being in pain. And all those attributes are wrapped in the programming of the hero of the dream. So it's not about pretending that's not the experience I'm having. It's about recognizing, oh, wow, look at how my investment in the ego has me pulled into whatever the scenario is. But I can now recognize that and choose differently.
Well, just even to say that it's my investment in the ego is to take it a step away from that.
Yes. And that's really what the process of practicing of this is the recognition, then the remembering of, wait a minute, what's going on here? Who's running the show? And then that stepping back, because, you know, the whole idea of rising above the battleground is I'm no longer attached to the battle. I'm observing the battle from a different perspective. And so the battle in itself doesn't have the same effect on me as it does if I'm crawling around in the you know, the middle of the war zone. So each time we can again pull ourselves back just a little bit, we're seeing from a different perspective.
Now, as somebody wise once said, the problem with life is you have to live it forwards and you can only understand it backwards. So we have to have these experiences, first, and then we get to, step back and take a look at them.
And I really believe in our progression with the course, those words will apply as well, in that, as I mentioned even to Rose, I have had the experience of it's almost like you have to go through that situation so that you can look at how attached or how fearful or how irritated or whatever I was, to even have a clear picture of what's going on within. But again, it's like that private investigator. The more I take out that magnifying glass and I keep examining what the ego's up to and how it plays its games and all the ways it pulls me in, each time we recognize a facet of that, it doesn't have as strong a hold on us any longer.
Marianne?
Yes.
Just reminded me, just a few days before the smoothie throwing, I had an experience where somebody said something to me, and it was something that he had said to me a couple years ago that stung, and he repeated it again a few days ago, and I was almost immediately aware of the anger. And I was able to, something came out of my mouth that was in defense. And then I stopped.
Okay.
And he's a course student. So I just said to him, oh my God, I said, that I'm experiencing a great deal of anger about this. And I was able to step back and take, we both took a look at this. It was so helpful. I don't usually catch it that quickly.
Okay, but even that's a beautiful indication that you are catching it more quickly and you're conscious enough to stop. And the story of the young girl and her mother, she stopped. How hard is it for us who this whole thought system came into existence because the Son of God did something. It had the thought of, I want to be something other than I was. And for us to reverse that train of stop is so challenging for us because we are a programmed, I got to do something character. And to come to a place where we can stop is so powerful. It doesn't seem like that's, what does stopping do? It doesn't do anything. But it's
no, to me, that's the Holy Spirit.
Absolutely.
To me, that's the reminder. It's a reminder.
Yes.
And I'm not doing that. Wow, something, stop, hold on, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Yes. Beautiful. Yep. And that's another thing that I meant to mention about the story of the girl and I tried to look for it, I couldn't find the quote, but there's a number of quotes in the course where it says, the lesson will continue to be repeated over and over until you get it. But this is impersonal. It's not somebody out there going, oh, you didn't get that lesson, dang you, and smacking you around. There's something here that can still pull you in. And as long as you believe there's something here that can pull you in, you're not fully aligned with that. And it will keep coming to the surface to bring you to that awareness so that you're willing to drop it and align with this. It's never this, you're bad and you should do this, or none of that's part of this whole teachings. It's simply, you made a choice that's not bringing you the peace you say you want, and that will continue to come to the surface until peace is all you want. Now, one beautiful one where it says, if you want the peace of God, it's yours. But you have to want the peace of God beyond everything else. Well, we're not there yet, and that's okay. It just is where we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about something, and there was an old Seinfeld episode where people they were speaking, they had a friend who only spoke in the third person.
Oh,
Say,
okay.
Donnie doesn't want to go here. And I'm thinking, well, I do that sometimes. And even if I don't say it, I think I might think that way.
Right.
Beata doesn't do this, or Beata does, or Beata is feeling this, meaning that it's not really who I am. It's this puppet. And that would be a tool for reminding ourselves of that.
Yep.
Does anybody ever, I mean, it's probably kind of silly.
Well, but
To
it's
do that, but it's an interesting tool if you're with.
Definitely, because you're not as attached to the character when you're coming from that place.
Right.
And the whole idea of rising above the battleground and observing what's going on in the world is you're disengaging from the character, basically.
Yeah, who is the me that's talking? Who is the me that's doing this?
Yes, I can remember in the Eckhart Tolle, and when he had his first enlightenment experience, he said the words of, he became aware that he was observing the pain he was going through, and then it occurred to him, if something is observing the character, then what's the something that's observing it? So
right.
Yes.
Right. And there's something else I was thinking about earlier when Andrea was talking. Do you remember Wayne Dyer?
Sure.
Of course, he was very big. He was a course student from way, way, way back when. But he used to say, if somebody called you a car, would you take that in? Would you take that personally and answer going vroom, 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 vroom? Okay, would you believe what he said?
No.
So I still think about that once in a while if somebody says something,
Right. And to be aware that if they say something that does take your peace away, you have an attraction point for it. Because if they said you were a car, you would go, all right, and you'd walk away. But if they said something that, whether you're consciously aware of it or not,
well, I must believe that part.
Right. If it takes your peace away, you have an attraction for it. End of story. And so the problem really isn't them, it's the fact that we have an attraction for it. And that's what needs healed.
Exactly. Yes, okay.
Right.
Okay, I said my piece. Okay.
All right, we are going to do our usual
time.
Mute everybody, and we'll say the prayer, and then I'll open it up and we can talk if we want. Okay. All right, so everybody take a nice big deep breath and let it out.
I'm not muted, Marianne.
You're not?
No.
And click mute all.
Is it?
Are you? Oh, there we go. Okay, so take a nice big deep breath and let it all go. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you. Wait a minute. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given and accept but this into the minds which you've created and which you love. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate everybody's sharing. Very helpful. Thank you.
Good to see all your faces. Have a great